Tonight, we slip through time, no fanfare, no fuss. Just you, your blanket, and a story older than sleep. You may not survive this world, but don't worry, you're just visiting. Before we drift off, tap like and subscribe, only if this helps you rest. Drop your location and the time down below. I always wonder who else is awake. Alright, lights low, fan humming. Let's start the journey. You wake up in the 13th century, but not in a tapestry, not in a castle, not even in a field of daffodils with a lute-strumming page boy handing you a goblet of something honey-colored and mysterious. No, you wake up in a smell. It creeps into your nostrils before your eyes agree to open. Something thick, fermented, wet, but also burned. You don't remember falling asleep in a latrine, but this morning, history has different plans. You're lying on straw. It rustles as you shift, disoriented. Each movement releases a microburst of someone else's decades-old dandruff and, yes, something suspiciously crunchy. You tell yourself it's dried mud. You lie to yourself very effectively. You sit up. A beam of grayish light seeps through a warped wooden shutter. There's no glass. Of course there's no glass. The glass is reserved for kings, and even they mostly use it to display saints with bad posture. The room is not a room. It's a wooden box, nailed together by someone who once watched someone else describe a house. The roof leaks in 3 places. The floor is the earth. The walls bulge with mildew that has its own personality. You are in a peasant's hut, but really, you are in a time capsule of communal suffering. Outside, you hear the early medieval morning. Clogs squelch in the mud. A pig screams at nothing. A child coughs in that damp, bronchial way that sounds like an audition for the Black Death. There's a church bell in the distance, but it's not cheerful. It tolls like it's tired of being a bell. And over it all, the stink, like a stew that boiled too long in its own shame. A sourness that clings to your tongue. There are no sewers here, only dreams of them, and your dream just ended. Congratulations, you've woken up in the filth age. Let's get something clear right away. Nobody flushed anything. The word toilet? Not invented yet, not for centuries. The idea of a room dedicated solely to excrement, with ceramic, privacy, and plumbing, is an absurd luxury, like powdered sugar, or being literate. Here, there are only options, and none of them are good. If you're royalty, you'll be squatting over a garderobe, which sounds elegant, but is really just a high-altitude wooden shelf with a hole in it. We'll get to that in Chapter 2. Trust me, you'll miss your porcelain throne soon. If you're poor, and you are, then it's the bush, or a pot, or the corner. Sometimes the corner is the pot, and sometimes the pot is shared. Still awake? You're stronger than most. You open the door to your hut. It creaks like it's dying, but it does open. Immediately, the wind greets you, and it's not fresh. It carries the smell of hundreds of other mornings, all of them badly digested. Across the muddy yard is a pile. The pile has no name. Everyone knows what it is. Sometimes they call it the midden, but mostly they just avoid eye contact. It's where everything goes. Scraps, bones, ashes, afterbirth, secrets. And yes, there are chickens pecking at it. Of course there are. They look up at you with eyes that have seen too much and understood none of it. You move past them. You don't want to contribute to the midden yet, not before your body has fully committed to the day. Instead, you walk toward the stream. Ah yes, the stream, the great equalizer, the water source, the wash basin, the occasional grave. It glistens faintly in the morning haze. But don't get sentimental. The stream is, well, let's just say everything runs into it. From upstream, from the animals, from the huts, from you. You crouch beside it, cupping your hands. The water is brownish clear, like someone diluted despair in tea. You drink it anyway. That's just the century. There's something deeply democratic about medieval sanitation. Everyone suffers. Some just suffer in silk. Even kings smell, especially kings. Their robes are wool, their underthings are linen, and the concept of deodorant is centuries away. Their castles have garderobes, yes, but when the wind shifts, even the highest tower can become a chimney of fecal regret. Peasants envy the nobility, nobles envy Roman plumbing, and Roman plumbing is buried, forgotten. An entire empire of aqueducts and heated baths reduced to, you mean they pooped in marble? Yes, they did, and now, you don't. Let's talk about soap. You don't have any. What you have is lye, which is not the same thing. Lye is a caustic alkali made by letting rainwater filter through ashes, collecting in a bucket, and waiting until it becomes strong enough to burn skin. You might use it to clean your clothes. You might use it to clean your hands. You might use it to clean your soul, if you believe in exfoliation by suffering. Smells, you cover them with herbs, if you're lucky, or with nothing, if you're honest. Perfume is for the rich, but even then it's not subtle. It's overpowering garden of anguish levels of floral, like someone tried to bury a corpse inside a lavender bush and just kept going. A quick digression, if I may. In this world, smell is status, the poor reek of proximity, to animals, to each other, to the consequences of having no personal space, the rich reek of attempted distraction, civet, musk, rosewater, and desperation. If you're close enough to smell someone in the 13th century, you're too close, unless you're married, and even then, only on feast days. You return to your hut, the smell of the stream still clinging to your fingers. You wipe them on your tunic, which hasn't been washed since the last flood. The flood was last year. Inside, your breakfast awaits. We'll talk about that in chapter 4. But for now, just breathe in. The fire pit has gone cold. The straw is damp. Your body itches in places you can't politely mention, and the air tastes like boiled onions, old wool, and something fungal. This is history, not as they wrote it, as they smelled it. You're not special here. You're just another nose in the wind. Sleep well, wanderer. It could always be worse. You could be downstream. You have never looked at a small wooden door in a castle wall and thought, that's where the king defecates. But here, that's exactly what you're looking at. Stone walls, ivy clinging to cracks, a fluttering banner in the breeze, and then the box, just hanging there. Slightly cantilevered, barely supported, like a birdhouse built by someone who's only ever seen birds explode. This is the garderobe, and you are about to enter. Let's pause first to appreciate the irony of the name. Garderobe, from the French to guard robes, because once upon a euphemistic time, the nobles believed the ammonia stench of the privy would ward off moths. That's right, hung their clothes in the toilet. It's not just poor hygiene, it's weaponized fabric storage. You open the door, it creaks. Of course it creaks. All medieval doors creak. They don't know any other verb. Inside, a chamber barely wide enough for shame. The light comes from a slitted window, decorative only if you're fond of gloomy rectangles. The walls sweat with damp. Moss crawls from corner to corner like it's casing the place for a robbery. There is no seat, not in the modern ergonomic sense. What you have is a plank or a slab of stone. Sometimes there's a wooden ring, sometimes there's just a hole. This hole, this sacred medieval void, opens directly into space. Not the good kind, not stars and galaxies, but a dark, echoing chute that empties into a pit below, or a moat, or the street, or your enemy's property. Waste, after all, is always someone else's problem. Let's talk elevation. The garderobe is elevated, high above the ground. This is not for ventilation, this is for gravity. You are an aristocrat, and aristocrats drop their problems downward. Sometimes the chute is designed to exit over a cliff. Sometimes it drains into the castle walls themselves, slowly soaking the stone with a centuries-long revenge. Yes, the walls leak. Yes, it's warm in winter. Yes, the smell haunts entire bloodlines. You sit because you must. Let's not pretend this is private. There's a reason medieval manuscripts have illustrations of nobles pooping side by side, hats still on, chatting like it's a garden party. Privacy is a modern sickness. Here, everyone shares. Disease, air, lice, secrets. But you are alone now. Alone with the sound of your own internal distress echoing down a vertical tunnel of stone, wood, and shame. Below you, the pit. It's called a cesspit because reeking tomb of the human condition didn't fit on the diagram. There's no cleaning schedule, no maintenance crew. When it fills up, which it always does, a man is summoned. We'll meet him in chapter 7. Spoiler, he regrets everything. You might be wondering, wasn't this dangerous? Yes, it was. Many a servant slipped. Many a drunk noble fell in. There are records, coroner's records, of people dying in garderobes, suffocated, drowned in waste, a royal flush, centuries before plumbing. And yet this is luxury. The peasants, remember, have a ditch, if they're lucky. Some don't even bother with that. Why dig a hole when the world already hates you? Here's a fun design flaw. The chute, that vertical escape hatch for your digested sins, is often built within the castle walls, because that's clever. Out of sight, out of mind. Except stone absorbs moisture and smells, so entire wings of castles became perfumed with ancient bowel movements. The word you're searching for is miasma, And yes, they believed the miasma caused disease. They weren't entirely wrong, just wildly imprecise. No germ theory, just bad vibes and blame. The floor beneath you shifts slightly. The wood is old, splintered, greasy with the residue of time. You look down, a mistake. The hole yawns open. You swear it's looking back. The smell is not just foul, it's layered. Ammonia on rot, on mildew, on something faintly metallic, like someone steeped a corpse in vinegar and then sprinkled cloves on top to be festive. You breathe through your mouth. That doesn't help. Now it's in your tongue. Modern comparison? Imagine using a porta-potty that's never been emptied during a heat wave, on a boat, in a swamp, and it's also haunted. Now imagine doing it in velvet, while wearing 3 layers of wool. Because fashion. There is no wiping here. That comes later. Much later. With hay, or moss, or fabric that used to be part of something more innocent. Sometimes they used ceramic shards. Sometimes, legend says, a sponge on a stick. Communal, not cleaned, just dunked in vinegar and returned to service like a veteran. You will think about that now, and forever. You finish, there is no flushing, just departure. You rise, you turn, you glance once more at the hole, the architectural equivalent of a war crime, and you close the creaking door. You don't wash your hands. There is no sink. The water basin, if it exists, is purely symbolic, and you'll get cleaner when the next rainstorm ambushes you in a field. You walk back down the corridor. The draft follows you. It smells like history. So that was a royal bathroom. Let it sit with you, let it stew. Because in the next chapter, we're going to the other end of the hierarchy. Not castles, not garderobes, but chamber pots, and what happens when you live on the bottom floor. Until then, sleep carefully, and if you hear a drip, don't look up. There is no flush. There is only gravity, and you, regrettably, live underneath it. We've left behind the castle walls now. Down in the town, in the crammed wooden puzzle box that is medieval urban housing, narrow alleys, leaning buildings, entire blocks constructed like Jenga towers with chronic arthritis. You're a tenant, not a landowner. You rent the ground floor of a house someone else designed during a hallucination. The ceiling above you is not insulated. It's not even flat. And most importantly, it's directly beneath someone else's chamber pot. Yes. That is the noise you just heard. No, you don't want to look up. Let's define the medieval chamber pot. A humble bowl. Ceramic, maybe pewter, held beneath the bed like a secret. Used by everyone, noble and peasant alike, because no one wants to stumble outside in the dark holding their backside and dignity simultaneously. By daylight, it becomes an object of transit. You carry it. You empty it. Sometimes in a designated area, but more often, out the window. Let me say that again, because your modern brain is resisting. Out the window. Yes, directly, onto the street. This is not urban legend. This is municipal design. Some towns had bylaws, highly optimistic ones, that required residents to shout garde-à-l'eau before emptying their pot. Garde-à-l'eau, derived from the French garde à l'eau, literally, watch out for the water. Except it wasn't water. It was yesterday's stew with vengeance. You live below. You are the other resident, the one beneath the poor. Your window, should you be foolish enough to open it, overlooks an alley paved with foul intentions. There are no sidewalks. There is no drainage. There is only muck, layered, glazed, striated like a sewer's geological core sample. Your shoes, if you can afford them, are wooden platforms. They don't protect your ankles or your soul. Each step squelches. Each squelch is a guess. Was it animal? Was it human? Was it soup? You don't ask. You're walking down the alley now. It's mid-morning. The sun cuts between buildings like a poorly drawn cartoon. You hear a window above creak open, and you freeze. Instinct. Your neck stiffens. You look up, cautiously, and there it is. A hand, a shadow, a tilt. You step back, just in time. The chamber pot empties, a splash, a cascade, a steaming gift from above. It hits the cobblestone with a biblical squelch. Someone laughs, someone gags, you survive. But barely. Let's talk architecture. Medieval homes were built with jutting upper floors. Why? More room upstairs, less tax on the footprint, but also, conveniently, a better angle of discharge. Some houses even had carved stone gutters leading from the chamber pot shelf to the outside wall, ending in a spout that looked like a grotesque gargoyle. Because if you're going to unleash hell, might as well make it decorative. And the target? Whoever's unlucky enough to be walking by. Here's the thing. You get used to it. The smell, the danger, the constant vigilance. You learn the daily rhythms. Mrs. Elworthy empties her pot at dawn, the cooper on the corner waits until after his second ale, and the butcher's apprentice just leans out the window and lets go. There's etiquette, yes, but it's a code written in urine and broken promises. You wear a hat, not for fashion, for defense. Let me pause here, this is important. The floor above you is not waterproof. It's timber, gapped, warped. Every sound, every leak, every unpleasant surprise, it finds you. You lie in bed at night and you hear the creak of the neighbor's chamber pot being slid from under the bed. You know the sound. You brace for it. Sometimes it drips. You don't ask from where. Occasionally, very occasionally, there is a privy, a shared outhouse, communal, wooden, rancid. Usually it's a pit dug out back with a seat carved in a plank and a smell that refuses to be forgotten. It might serve 5 households, or 20. There's no light, no lock, no guarantee that what's inside isn't already occupied by rats, or worse. But still, it beats the floor above. You dream of privies, you fantasize about sewers, you pray for plumbing like it's a messiah. Modern comparison? Imagine living in the apartment beneath a family of raccoons with IBS who refuse to use litter boxes. And also, gravity is aggressive now. Now remove disinfectant, remove electricity, remove hope. You're there. Let's return to you. You step inside your home. Your boots leave a trail. You take them off. You place them by the door. They lean toward the fire, steaming. You sit on the stool, the one that doesn't wobble much. You take your own chamber pot, delicately, and slide it behind the curtain. You try not to breathe. Tomorrow it'll be full, and you'll carry it, past the others, down the alley, toward the drain, or the pile. Or maybe if the night is quiet, out the window. But you'll shout, you're not a monster. So ends another downward glance into medieval daily life. In Chapter 4 we feast, and by feast I mean you'll try to eat something that looks like porridge, smells like a dare, and was probably stirred with the same spoon someone used on a goat. Until then, sleep well, and maybe, just maybe, don't live on the ground floor. You are hungry, not starving, not yet, but medieval hungry, which is different. It's a kind of hunger that lingers even after eating. A hunger that gets passed down through generations, like poor posture or a family curse. It's a hunger that knows there won't be anything better for a while, so it makes do. Or worse. The fire is low. A few embers pulse beneath ash like dying stars. You poke at them with a stick that once belonged to a tree, then a fence post, then maybe a pig pen. Its resume is long and disgraceful. You add a bit of kindling. The smoke is slow, lazy, passive-aggressively clinging to your tunic. The pot hangs over the hearth like an executioner's mask. Inside, gruel. Now, let's define our terms. Gruel is not oatmeal. It's not porridge. It's not even food. It's a medium. A suspension of water and crushed sadness, sometimes thickened with barley or oats, depending on what you stole or bartered that week. If you're lucky, it's warm. If you're really lucky, it has texture. This morning, you are lucky enough to own a spoon. It's wooden, flat, possibly part of something else in a past life. You stir the gruel. It clings to the edges like it's afraid of you. You take a bite. It is beige in every possible way. Let's go over the ingredients. Water from the stream. So brown, oats, months old, stored in a sack that also stored mice. Salt, rare, possibly traded for a favor you regret. Fat, maybe. A rind, if you remembered to scrape it from yesterday's pan. Bits, unidentifiable, possibly from the ceiling, possibly not food. You eat them anyway. It's warm though. That's what matters. That's the luxury. Sometimes, if the gods are amused, there's bread. It is not fluffy. It is not fresh. It is a loaf forged in fire and despair, hard enough to chip a tooth, dense enough to commit a crime. To soften it, you dunk it in the gruel. To chew it, you summon all your ancestors. Once, a stone got baked into a loaf. Nobody noticed for 3 days. Protein? Unlikely. Eggs are for the lucky. Meat is for the lords. Fish is for Friday and rivers that haven't died yet. If you do find a bit of meat, it is suspiciously chewy. You do not ask what it was. You do not ask if it was recently alive. You just chew, slowly, respectfully, like it's watching. Let's talk milk. It's not pasteurized. That word does not exist. It is raw, room temperature, evolving. You drink it when it's fresh, you curdle it when it's not. Eventually, you stop asking questions and call it cheese. Sometimes it's sour, sometimes it's deadly, sometimes both. You drink it anyway. You eat in silence, not for reverence, for exhaustion. Breakfast is not an event, it's an obligation. You eat to function, to move, to suffer through the rest of the day. No coffee, no toast, no eggs Benedict or otherwise, just gruel. And the occasional bonus texture. Modern comparison? Imagine prison food. Now remove the nutrition. Now prepare it in a dirty cauldron. Now serve it in a house made of mildew at 6 in the morning while your feet are damp and someone is already screaming outside. There. That's breakfast. Sometimes, though, there are feast days. And on those days you might get pottage. Pottage is just gruel with ambition. Add a root vegetable. Add a bone. Add something green that might be cabbage or might be decorative. It still tastes like boiled apology, but it fills the belly. And that's what matters. You wipe your mouth on your sleeve. The sleeve is not clean, but nothing is. Your teeth ache, your jaw clicks, you're full. Not satisfied, but full, and that will have to do. Outside, the sky remains gray. It's always gray. You're not sure if the sun is hiding or just ashamed. You step out into the morning filth, past the midden heap, past the pigs. Someone is already relieving themselves behind the shed. They nod at you. You nod back. This is community. Your stomach is quiet for now. Your breath fogs the air. Your spoon goes back into your satchel. It's a good spoon. It's yours. And now, it's time for clothes. Rough, itchy, questionable. We'll dress you in Chapter 5. Badly. But for now, sleep softly. And if you dream of breakfast, dream small. You are naked. Let's not be precious about it. You woke up wrapped in straw, half covered by a tunic that smells like brine and barnyard. Now you stand there, itchy, cold, and profoundly aware that every item of clothing you're about to put on has absorbed more history than most scrolls. There is no wardrobe, no armoire, no seasonal rotation or drawer full of comforting options. There is a pile. A wrinkled, vaguely damp, aggressively woolen pile. Your outfits, plural in theory only, are here, waiting for you like a soggy ambush. First, the base layer. A linen shirt. It's yellowing, because of time, because of skin, because of the complete lack of laundry. Linen is precious. It's hand-woven, irregular, and stiff. It has the texture of sandpaper wrapped around a complaint. You pull it over your head. It scratches your neck like an angry squirrel. The collar gapes in a way that suggests it was made for someone broader, or sloppier, or both. The hem is uneven. That's fashion. Next, the brays. These are your undergarments, the medieval answer to boxers. Loose, knee-length, and held up by a drawstring that never stays knotted. You tie them anyway. They sag. They always sag. And no, there is no elastic. Elastic won't be invented for another 700 years. Until then, it's just you and the slow gravitational surrender of woven cloth. Over that, the hose. Not socks, not trousers. These are tubes of wool that cling to your legs with desperation. Each leg is separate. They are tied, sometimes to your belt, sometimes to each other, sometimes not at all. One always sags lower than the other. This is medieval symmetry. If you're wealthy, you're not, they might be colored. If you're lucky, also no, they might match. You are neither. The tunic comes next. This is the outer layer, the public face, the medieval hoodie. It is thick, heavy, slightly oily, because you once spilled candle fat on it, or animal fat, possibly both. It's itchy, because it's made from untreated wool. Not modern, pre-shrunk, soft wool. No, this is wool that remembers the sheep, intimately. It smells like smoke and feet and something botanical in the way that mold is botanical. There are no buttons, just a slit at the neck and a prayer. You tie a belt around your waist. The belt is leather, cracked. It holds your knife, your pouch, and your dignity. It also holds your keys if you're a woman and responsible for the household. Yes, medieval women wore their entire authority around their waist. It jingled. It was symbolic. It was also an invitation for children to ask where the cheese was. Let's not forget the headwear. You do not leave the house without it. For men, a coif, a cap, or a hat, so floppy it looks like it gave up on being a hat and chose depression instead. For women, a wimple, a veil, a linen wrap of infinite folds and inconvenience. Hair is suspect. Uncovered hair is scandalous. No, we're not joking. Hair was a moral crisis. If your hair is visible, someone's grandmother will make the sign of the cross and throw cabbage at you. Now, shoes. They are not left or right, just shoe. Made of leather, sewn by hand. Sole so thin you can feel every pebble whisper its grievances into your foot. They are tied with laces or scraps of cloth or hope. They leak. They chafe. They squeak when wet. You will wear them anyway. Because barefoot is not romantic here. It's deadly. Optional accessories? A cloak. Woolen. doubles as a blanket, triples as a shroud. Gloves, fingerless if you're working, non-existent if you're poor. Jewelry, if you're rich, but be careful. Jewelry has opinions. A brooch to keep your cloak shut, or to stab someone politely. Let's talk laundry. It doesn't happen. Not often. Clothes are washed rarely because water is cold, soap is expensive, and drying takes forever. And when they do get washed, they're boiled, then beaten with paddles, then laid out on hedges to air dry in a fog of passive aggression. They fade, they warp, they shrink unevenly, and they always come back stiffer, sadder, and somehow dirtier than before. You scratch your neck, something tiny scuttles away. You pretend not to notice. Lice are part of the outfit. You don't talk about them. But they're always there, like that one uncle at weddings. Sometimes people wear amulets to ward them off. Sometimes they shave their heads. Sometimes they just stop caring. You are rapidly approaching stop caring. Modern comparison? It's like dressing from a thrift store curated by a vengeful ghost. Everything is slightly damp. Everything smells like it belonged to a scarecrow with hygiene issues. And nothing fits. Fashion in this age is function plus suffering equals identity. You are now fully dressed. You feel heavier, scratchier, emotionally compromised. You do not look in a mirror. There is no mirror. And even if there were, it would be made of polished metal and deep disappointment. You step outside. The mud sticks to your shoes like it missed you. It is time for work. Whatever you do, you'll do it cold, chafing, and stylistically underwhelmed. We'll join you there in Chapter 6. But for now, rest. And if you dream of cotton sheets and sweatpants, keep dreaming. The mud is ankle deep today. That's not unusual. It's just Thursday. Your shoes, such as they are, squish and protest. You remind them who owns whom. They don't listen. They never do. The sky is gray again. The medieval sky has two moods, gray and black. Sometimes, if the saints are amused, you get a watery blue smear for half an hour. But not today. You haven't even started laboring and your spine already regrets waking up. Welcome to your workday. Let's clarify something up front. There are no weekends, there are no breaks, no unions, no remote work. Your boss is usually God, landowners, or a very angry man with a club and a grudge against serfs. And your options? Well, you were born into your job. Congratulations. Peasant, then it's the fields for you. Your tools are simple. A wooden plow, a spade, a rake that looks like it fought a bear and lost. Your field is shared, open, communal. 3-field rotation if you're lucky. Fallow patches if you're not. You bend, dig, sow, reap, and weep. All before noon. The earth is uncooperative, the weather is theatrical, and your body aches in medieval Latin. Craftsman, welcome to your workshop. You pound iron, you carve wood, you spin wool. Everything smells like dust and sweat and failure. Your tools are ancient, your hands are calloused. Your apprentices are 12-year-olds with fleas and a learning disability called no school. You measure time by candle drips. You measure success by not dying. Servant? You're indoors, technically. But that doesn't mean safety. The castle is a maze of icy corridors, bad lighting, and aristocrats with whims. You scrub floors with rags. You empty chamber pots. Remember those? You fetch, carry, hold, heat, lift, stir, and apologize. If you drop something, it's your fault. If someone else drops something, it's your fault. You learn to smile with your teeth clenched and soul retired. Miller? Tyler? Tanner? Fletcher? Congratulations on your niche. You've mastered a trade passed down by generations of slightly competent ancestors, but the competition is stiff, and your guild, if you have one, is run by men who treat meetings like crusades. Also, your workshop is likely attached to your home, which means your house smells like tanning fluid, sawdust, or fermenting disappointment. Monk? Nun? Ah yes, the lazy life. Except it isn't. You copy manuscripts until your eyes bleed. You garden, cook, pray, fast, pray again, and debate the morality of cheese. Also, you wake at midnight, not to sin, to sing psalms in the dark, barefoot, cold, hungry, and half asleep. Heaven better be good, because the perks down here are questionable. But today, you are a field laborer. Why? Because most people were. And because nothing screams romantic history like shoving seeds into frozen mud while crows laugh at you from the hedges. You shoulder your hoe. It's not sharp, it's not clean, but it's yours. The field stretches ahead, brown, clumpy, decorated with stones that weren't there yesterday and definitely weren't invited. You begin digging, the earth fights you. It clings, it sucks, it resists the blade, your hands blister, your knees ache, The wind picks up, it smells like other people's toil and pig flatulence. Your back begins to curve, slightly at first, then enthusiastically. Congratulations, you're 28 and already shaped like a question mark. Mid-morning, you pause. You wipe your brow with a sleeve that's already absorbed half your fluids. Someone nearby coughs. It's the wet kind. Medieval lungs kind. You hope it's not contagious. It is. The sun attempts to appear. Fails. Goes back to bed. You return to digging. Lunch is not a break. It's a pause. A crust of bread. A sliver of cheese. A drink from a flask that's more backwash than beer. You chew slowly. Not because it's delicious. Because the longer you chew, the less time you're back in the dirt. Conversation is rare. Voices are low. Teeth are missing. Someone burps. Someone prays. You finish your meal. You stand up. Your knees audibly protest. Afternoon brings more of the same, but with less energy and more pain. Your fingers cramp. Your back itches. You find a bug. It is inside your tunic. It has made friends. A noble rides past on a horse. They do not see you, but the horse does. And it judges. Modern comparison? It's like working on a construction site in a wool suit, with no boots, no lunch break, no OSHA, and your boss is a landlord, a bishop, and also probably the weather. The sun begins to lower. You count the minutes by how many times your stomach growls. Each swing of the hoe is more a gesture of resistance than a contribution to agriculture. But you endure, because that's the only currency here. Endurance, resilience, and an unshakable refusal to die before dinner. The bell rings, not a whistle, a bell, from the church. It tolls out across the fields like a sigh. You stand upright, briefly, painfully, like a folding chair with opinions. Your hands tremble, your feet are numb, your soul is somewhere else, probably hiding, but you're done. You return to the village. You smell like compost. Your breath tastes like starch and despair. You survived another shift. That's the win. In Chapter 7, we'll explore medicine, or something like it. For now, stretch out. Let your limbs forget the labor. And if your dreams are sore, it just means they're working too. You are not well, but of course, you never were. No one is, not really. Health in this age is a brief pause between illnesses, a moment of stillness before the next bodily betrayal. Today, it's your stomach, or your head, or your lungs, or your skin, which is doing something it definitely shouldn't. And so with that familiar medieval optimism, the kind laced with doom and resignation, you go in search of medicine. Not healing, just intervention. The village has a healer. She is not licensed, she does not have a degree, but she has roots and jars and opinions. She also has a reputation. Some say she speaks to plants. Some say she murdered a bishop using only moss. Some say she once cured a man's cough by scaring it out of him with a badger. All of them are right, and all of them are terrified of her. You knock. A crow caws. The wind shivers. The door creaks open on its own. Welcome to healthcare. The room is dark, always. The walls are lined with bundles of dried herbs, bones, and something that might be hair, but no one's asking. There is a cauldron bubbling in the corner. Because of course there is. She emerges from the shadows, wrapped in linen, stooped, eyes sharp enough to file a knife. She does not ask what's wrong. She tells you, you've got humors out of balance. She's probably right. Let's talk humors. The body, according to science, which is to say educated guesswork, is made of 4 fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. When you're sick, one of them is in excess, or insufficient, or being dramatic. The solution? Balance them. How? Well, bloodletting. You are handed a knife or taken to someone with a fancier one. They open a vein, gently, casually. The blood flows into a bowl that looks suspiciously like a cereal dish. You are told it will release the heat. You are sweating. Not from heat, from fear. They tell you to eat cold foods for a while. You weren't eating hot ones anyway. Still too full of life? Try leeches. Fat, black, eager little things. They are placed on your skin, neck, wrist, inner thigh, anywhere the blood is dramatic. They suck. Literally, metaphorically. When full, they drop off, sated. You are left dizzy and lightly traumatized. The healer smiles. She says you're improving. You are not. Or perhaps you are too cold inside, too moist, too phlegmatic. You are prescribed spices, clove, cinnamon, pepper, if you can afford them. If not, onions. Boiled, infused, rubbed into places we will not name. Also, mustard plasters. What are they? A delightful combination of pain and regret smeared on your chest like a burning hug from a disappointed god. Or maybe it's worms. Everyone has them. No, really, everyone. You are told to swallow ashes from a burnt mouse mixed with ale. It doesn't help, but you learn something about yourself. Let's say it's your teeth. They hurt. Of course they do. Dentistry is a hammer and a friend to hold you down. No anesthesia, no warning, just a firm grip, a wrenching noise, and the scream of something ancestral leaving your jaw forever. Maybe you're lucky. Maybe it's just a rash. The cure, a poultice of mashed garlic, sheep dung, and belief. Apply twice daily until your skin protests, then stop, or don't. Let's not forget the urine charts. Yes, you pee in a flask. The healer holds it to the light like a sommelier, swirls it, sniffs it, and declares you melancholic with a chance of death. She prescribes powdered toad. You nod. You take it. You wonder how the toad feels about this. For fevers, there are two strategies: bleed you, boil you, sometimes both. You're placed in a steam tent made of wet blankets and hot stones. You emerge half-cooked and mildly hallucinating. That means it worked. And if all else fails, prayer. Lots of it. Sometimes from monks, sometimes from saints, sometimes from traveling relics brought to town on donkey back. One time a finger bone cured a man's limp. One time, it didn't. Modern comparison? It's like going to a doctor who read 2 chapters of a cookbook and decided to become a surgeon, and also believes demons cause migraines. You leave the healer's hut with a salve, a warning, and something in your mouth that might be clove or might be regret. You are not cured, but you are medieval cured, which means you're still alive, for now. In Chapter 8, we'll eat again, food, in public, at dusk. And yes, it's worse this time. Until then, sleep deeply, dream of hygiene, and be grateful you still have all your fluids. The sun has begun to sag. It never rises with confidence in this century, but by evening it truly gives up. The sky fades into a murky, bruised purple, like the thigh of someone who fell off a cart, and your stomach reminds you that it hasn't been full since, well, ever. It's time for dinner, not a meal, a ritual, a coping mechanism, an exercise in chewing through fatigue, filth, and texture uncertainty. You're back at home, if that's what we're still calling it. The hearth is warmish, the air inside smells like wet wool, old onions, and burnt something. No one's sure what burned. It happened days ago. It's still smoking. You crouch near the pot. Yes, it's the same pot. No, it wasn't cleaned. Yes, bits of yesterday remain. That's called flavor layering. Tonight's menu? Pottage. Again. If breakfast gruel was water-wearing oat cosplay, pottage is the stew version. Thicker, lumpier, with the distinct possibility of bones. You stir it with a stick. You pretend it's a spoon. You don't ask where it came from. Inside the pot, a root, possibly a turnip, possibly not, a piece of meat, possibly a rat, possibly not, a green thing, possibly cabbage, possibly a former leaf, and several uninvited guests, hair, ash, maybe a beetle. You squint, you stir, you eat it anyway. Let's talk meat. Fresh meat is rare, because livestock are valuable and dead livestock are less so. Meat is usually salted, smoked, or questionable. It comes in strips, curls, or slabs, all equally chewy. It might be pork, it might be game, it might be something that fell into a trap and looked edible from a distance. You chew until your jaw clicks. You swallow, you hope. Bread makes a cameo, stale, hard. It could be a prop in a crime scene reenactment. You soak it in the pottage until it pretends to cooperate. Then you bite, then you regret. One day someone will invent soft bread. Today is not that day. There's also ale. Because water is a suggestion, not a guarantee. Ale is weak, warm, and flat. But it won't kill you. It might give you a headache, but it won't give you dysentery. And that's the bar now, literally. If you're eating in a hall, things get worse. Long wooden tables, communal bowls, everyone dipping their hands, double dipping, triple dipping, unwashed dipping. The spoons are shared, the bench is shared. Your neighbor's cough is very much shared. The air is thick with steam, conversation, and contagious optimism. Someone sneezes. Into the soup. Nobody flinches. Let's talk about table manners. There are none. Or rather, there are rules, but they are elaborate, contradictory, and heavily class-based. For example, don't eat off your knife unless you're noble. Then do. Don't wipe your fingers on your tunic unless it's not Sunday. Don't pick your teeth unless you're rich, in which case it's elegant. Don't speak with your mouth full unless the bishop does it first, and always, always pray first. Because if the food doesn't kill you, God might. And now, dessert. That's adorable. There is no dessert, there is hope and sometimes a bruised pear. That's dessert. What if you're a monk? Ah, the cloistered cuisine. You eat in silence, you eat in order. You eat whatever the kitchen provides, which is always less than you want and more than you enjoy. Fish on Fridays, beans every day, and bread hard enough to spark theological debate. You chew, you nod, you pray. You wonder if hunger is just a form of holy penance. Spoiler, it is. Modern comparison? Imagine camping, in the rain, with no cooler, no seasoning, no napkins. Your only utensil is a stick, and your only seasoning is ash and willpower. That's dinner. Still, you eat. Because you must. Because there is work tomorrow. Because there might not be food tomorrow. You scrape the bottom of the pot. You chew the last crust of bread. You sip the ale. You ignore the floating thing. And for a moment, just a moment, you feel warm. In Chapter 9, we'll meet God, and also your neighbors. It's time for religion, suspicion, and surveillance, all wrapped in incense and disapproval. But for now, digest, drift, dream of flavor. God sees everything. So does your neighbor. And neither of them are pleased. The stars are just beginning to wink through the ash-colored haze of dusk. You can't see them clearly. The smoke from a dozen fires clings low and thick, like guilt in a small town. But you know they're up there. And somewhere above the stars is God. And somewhere just behind you, eavesdropping from the shadow of a pigsty, is your neighbor Edric, who is spiritually indistinguishable from God in terms of judgmental presence. Welcome to the holy trinity of medieval life, the church, the devil, and the nosy woman 3 huts down who saw you spit on a Sunday. You cross yourself, not because you're pious, but because everyone else is watching. And because if you sneeze and don't cross yourself, it might not just be a sneeze, it might be the devil. And if the devil takes hold, your neighbors have permission, nay obligation, to hold you down and cure you with holy water, garlic, and mild strangulation. Let's talk religion. It is not a part of life, it is life's wallpaper. Every thought, every action, every cough, every birth, death, dream, and rash, all of it filters through the omnipresent lens of divine meaning. There is only one church. It is Catholic, Latin-speaking, ritual-heavy, and definitely not up for discussion. You don't read the Bible. You wouldn't even if you could. First, because it's in Latin. Second, because you're not literate. Third, because even if you could read Latin, owning a Bible is suspicious unless you're a monk or the bishop's favorite nephew. Instead, you learn religion visually, through stained glass and drama plays and statues with suspiciously intense eyes. Saints bleed in technicolor. Demons leer from manuscripts. The devil is everywhere, and he is horned, goat-footed, and really into women with opinions. You attend Mass regularly. Not because you want to, but because absence implies heresy. Inside it's cold stone, beeswax smoke, incense thick enough to marinate in. The priest chants in Latin. You do not understand it. No one does. You kneel, you stand, you cross yourself. You try not to sneeze again. This is faith, or at the very least, compliance. Let's introduce the superstitions, because when theology ends, folk belief picks up the slack. You carry charms, a carved bone to protect against fever, a pouch of rosemary to keep away night spirits, a finger bone, allegedly from a saint, but definitely from something, to ward off infertility, boils, or envy. You do not walk under ladders. You do not sweep at night. You do not speak the name of the cunning man after dark. You do spit on the ground before entering your house. You do place iron nails at corners. You do murmur, "God shield me," every time you pass a black dog, a red-haired stranger, or a particularly gloomy goose. There is hell. It is not metaphorical. It is a place, with real fire, screaming, and naked people being eaten by snails, according to that one mural in the chapel. And you are always one bad turnip away from ending up there. Confess, repent, flagellate if needed, donate if you're wealthy, pray always. Sin is sticky, salvation is expensive, but sin isn't the only thing being monitored. There's also the community. Your neighbors watch you like the devil gave them binoculars. They notice who skipped church, who stirred their pot counterclockwise, who's letting their daughter read, who has a mole on the wrong side of the face. They talk, and eventually someone knocks on your door and asks you very politely if you've been consorting with spirits or goats. Let's talk witchcraft. Do you feel sick? Someone cursed you. Did your cow stop giving milk? Witch. Did your bread rise unevenly? Definitely witch. The accused is always a woman, alone, midwife adjacent, slightly irritable, and in possession of a cat. You are not safe. especially if you're a healer or weird or worse, both. Modern comparison? Imagine living in a gated community where everyone reports everyone else to a neighborhood council that answers only to God, speaks exclusively in riddles, and thinks sneezing is a moral failing. Also, there's a list, and you're on it. You go to bed that night having confessed nothing, but thinking everything. Did you sin? Probably. Was it the bread, the thoughts, the eyes you made at the blacksmith's apprentice? It doesn't matter. You murmur a prayer to your saint of choice. Saint Apollonia for teeth, Saint Roch for plagues, Saint Dymphna for despair. Then you roll over, trying not to think about the itching. In Chapter 10, we'll attempt fun, a festival, a game, a law or two. It won't go well. But until then, say your prayers. Sleep facing east, and keep your sins moderate and deniable. All play and no justice makes the Middle Ages a deeply suspicious place to party. You wake up sore. Of course you do. Because in the Middle Ages, rest is not restorative. It's just the period where your body quietly plans its revenge. But today feels different. There's shouting outside, drums, a smell that isn't just smoke or manure, it's more festive, like singed meat in excess. You step outside, it's a feast day. Praise be. Let's pause. What is a feast day? It's not a holiday, it's a holy day. You are required to celebrate. You are encouraged to smile. You are strongly discouraged from dying that day, unless you're doing it martyr style. Feast days dot the calendar like mold on cheese. Frequently, unevenly, and with theological justification, they mark saints' birthdays, saints' deaths, miracles, relics arriving in town, kings not dying when they probably should have. Today's is Saint Cuthbert's Day. You don't know who he is. No one does. But there's ale and juggling, so you celebrate. The village square is transformed. Banners flutter. Children roll hoops made of regret. A man on stilts threatens to fall. A woman plays the lute badly. There's a pig roasting, spitting slowly over a fire pit. You don't get any, but you do smell it. That's almost nourishment. A jester cackles at his own joke. He's wearing bells. They jingle with menace. You play a game. It involves throwing rocks at a barrel, balancing on one foot while singing something incomprehensible, possibly summoning spirits. You're not sure if you're winning, but an old man claps, so you assume it's going well. Let's talk sports. Medieval recreation is violent. There's mob football, where two towns chase a ball, or pig bladder, across fields, rivers, and into each other's homes. There are wrestling matches, full of grunts, mud, and deeply suspect technique. There's archery, mandatory for men on certain days, and bear baiting, where you chain a bear to a post and see what happens. Spoiler, nothing good. Dancing happens too, but slowly, formally. No twerking, just twirling, and always with an eye toward sin prevention. Too much eye contact? Sin. Too much ankle? Mortal sin. Too much smiling? You might be possessed. The church tolerates dancing the way a cat tolerates a bath, only under extreme pressure and with claws fully extended. Music? Lutes, flutes, bagpipes, squealing sheep sacks, and chanting, always chanting. Songs are about dead saints, dying lovers, bread, dying bread-loving saints. It's catchy in the way that headaches are catchy. Let's talk law, because even during fun, the law watches. There's the manorial court, run by your local lord. He handles everything from sheep theft to improper hedge trimming. Justice is not blind. It is biased, sleepy, and armed. If you steal, you're pilloried, locked in wood, displayed, pelted with rotting produce and sharp opinions. If you blaspheme, you're fined, or worse, made to walk barefoot to the church in sackcloth while everyone glares judgmentally. If you're a woman and you talk too much, they might fit you with a scold's bridle, a metal muzzle for the mouth. Yes, that was a thing. Yes. Someone thought it was helpful. There's no police. Just Reeves, Beatles, and the Night Watch, all of whom are underpaid, overburdened, mildly corrupt. Related to someone on the town council, crime is punished quickly, but not cleanly. There are stocks, whippings, brandings, and sometimes just a public shaming where you hold a chicken and cry. But today, no one is being punished, yet. Everyone is too busy pretending things are fine. You drink weak ale from a shared cup. You eat a sausage you can't afford. You watch a puppet show about St. George slaying a dragon who looks suspiciously like the baker's dog in a hat. Children run past screaming. One throws a rock at a rat. It misses. The rat lives to see another feast day. You hear gossip. A merchant was caught weighing his flour wrong. A widow owns too many cats. Someone saw a woman reading. It is a delightful day. Modern comparison? Imagine a town fair held inside a tax office during a power outage, with jugglers, holy relics, questionable meat, and a man with a scroll who can declare you excommunicated for sneezing during a hymn. That's leisure. Evening falls, the banners sag, the jester has stopped laughing, the pig has been reduced to bones. You return home, tired, slightly drunk, possibly accused of heresy, but content, in that medieval way where content means still breathing. In Chapter 11, we'll explore romance. Spoiler, it's not romantic. Sleep well tonight. And if you hear bells in your dream, they might be for you. The heart wants what it can't have, and then the church weighs in with a list of forbidden cousins. You feel something. It's not hunger. That's always there. It's not sickness. That's also always there. It's longing. Your eyes wander to the girl from the next village, to the blacksmith's son, to anyone with most of their teeth and only a minor limp. Congratulations, you're feeling medieval lust. Not love, not yet. That comes later, after betrothal, land contracts, 3 goats, 2 witnesses, and a deeply uncomfortable conversation with your priest. Let's talk about romance. The kind you dream of? Candlelight? Love letters? Passion? That's heresy. Actual medieval romance is transactional, awkward, and regulated. Marriages aren't made in heaven, they're made in parish records. By parents, by lords, by livestock availability. If you fall in love, you're either rich and in trouble, poor and about to be punished, or French, which is its own problem. You live in a village of 200 people, which means choices are limited. You've known everyone since they were small, muddy, and frequently crying. Romance feels less like a spark and more like mutual attrition. You pick someone, or someone picks you, or your family strike a deal over grain. That's how marriage happens. Let's say you're courting. It starts with a glance. Then maybe a conversation about sheep. Then maybe, if the wind is right and the priest isn't looking, a smile, scandalous. Then comes the walk. The two of you wander near the edge of the village, never too far, because people talk and people watch. You don't touch. Not yet. Not unless you're ready for public penance, whispered gossip, and possibly a forced baptism. Sex before marriage? Illegal. Sinful. Deliciously common. Also punishable by a fine, a public confession, being paraded around the church with a placard reading fornicator while children throw stale rolls at you. And what if you're caught? The church has records. They keep them. Diligently. Illicit embraces, suspicious proximity, lustful intent during haymaking. That last one is real. You're taken to the bishop's court. You are asked questions. You are not allowed to lie. Everyone lies anyway. So you get married. The ceremony is dry. Mostly legal, partly religious, barely romantic. You stand in the church porch. You declare intent. You exchange a ring if you can afford one. You promise obedience, fidelity, and an heir. Then, and only then, the priest approves the bedroom. Yes, he has opinions. No, you don't get to vote. Let's talk bedrooms. There is no privacy, there is no silence, there is only a curtain and hope. Sometimes there's an audience. Yes, really. It's called bedding the couple. A tradition where friends and family lead you to the marriage bed, tuck you in, and wait until they're certain it's begun. Then they leave. Ideally. And what if you love someone you can't marry? Welcome to courtly love. It's an upper-class invention. Knights writing poems. Ladies sighing behind veils. Nothing physical, just yearning. Public, inconvenient, and eternally unfulfilled. Modern comparison? Imagine writing emo poetry about your crush, reading it aloud at a dinner party, and then swearing fealty to their dog. That's courtly love. Now, let's discuss forbidden love. You may not marry your cousin, first cousin, second cousin. Depends on how much the bishops had to drink. Your godparent. Your neighbor's widow, unless you get permission. Your step-sibling. Anyone your uncle once thought about marrying. The church keeps a chart. It looks like a family tree had a breakdown. You must get dispensation to marry close kin. It's expensive, so you just lie, or marry in secret, or move to another village and start over under a different name with fewer vowels. What about LGBTQ plus love? Well, it exists. Of course it does. People are still people, even in itchy tunics and bad lighting, but it is hidden, feared, sometimes quietly tolerated, more often punished with extreme theological disapproval and actual fire. We won't linger, but know this, it happened. Love always finds a crack in the wall, even one made of stone and sermons. Back to you. You're single, you're hopeful, you're thinking about asking someone to walk near the hedgerow with you. You wash your face, you brush your hair, you steal a flower from the neighbor's garden, you breathe. Then you knock. In Chapter 12, we'll leave adult nightmares behind and peek into the lives of children, who are not, in fact, small bundles of joy. They are tiny adults with jobs and opinions. For now, sleep lightly, and if you dream of love, don't tell the priest. No toys, no innocence, no shoes, just small hands doing big people's work. You hear it before you see it. The high-pitched laughter, the thuds of running feet, the unmistakable crunch of something delicate being stepped on. Again, children. Tiny, unwashed, eternally sticky humans. Except, this is not the modern kind of childhood, filled with juice boxes, nap time, and inflatable dinosaurs. No, this is medieval childhood, and it is terrifying. Let's start with a brutal truth. Childhood is not a protected state. It is not a magical land of learning and play. It is not a developmental phase carefully guided by adults with degrees and opinions about screen time. Childhood here is a trial period where you are rapidly assessed for usefulness. If you can lift something, carry something, sweep something, herd something, then congratulations. You're ready for life. You're 5. You're born at home, always, in blood, in hay, in haste. Your mother screams. Your grandmother holds her down. A midwife mutters a prayer to Saint Margaret and rubs goose fat somewhere it shouldn't go. If you survive birth, and that's a big if, you're baptized immediately. Because original sin is hovering, and heaven's daycare has strict policies. You're dunked, blessed, named, and wrapped in cloth. Then handed to a woman with 0 sleep and 6 other children. She does not coo, she does not read you poetry. She hands you a crust of bread and tells you not to die. Your first years are spent mostly surviving. You are carried on hips, swaddled in wool, left in corners, propped against geese. You chew on wood, you lick stones, you contract everything. There are no vaccines, no antibiotics, just herbal tea and strong opinions about demons. You are teething and possessed simultaneously. Your cries are chalked up to evil humors, or wind, or your father's sin from 5 years ago. Toys? Adorable. You might get a rock, a stick, a lump of cloth shaped like a horse, or perhaps a mistake. A doll carved from wood, cursed by time, and passed down through 3 generations of barely living. Games are social preparation. You learn how to chase chickens. You learn how to lie convincingly. You learn that stepping on sharp things builds character. There is no supervision. The world is your playground. The playground is full of open fires, livestock, and infectious diseases. At age 7, you are no longer a child. You are small labor. You are handed a tool, broom, bucket, rake, or sheep, and told to contribute. You sweep, you stir, you weed, you carry things to places you don't understand. You are shouted at constantly. Sometimes in Latin. You are expected to listen, obey, not complain, and never ever interrupt the priest. Education? Yes, technically. If you are male, noble, clerical, adjacent, or accidentally clever, then you might attend a monastery school, where you'll learn Latin, theology, and how to be permanently traumatized by a monk named Brother Allen who believes in discipline through cold water and disappointed looks. Girls don't go, unless they're very noble or accidentally disguised as boys. If you're apprenticed, that's education too. You are bound to a master. You live in their home. You sweep their floors. You obey every order. You learn the trade. Eventually. After 7 years of this, you might become a journeyman. Or you might die in a vat of dye, which happens surprisingly often. Love? No time. Puberty hits you like a cart with no brakes. Your parents arrange a marriage before your voice finishes changing. Girls marry young, too young. You don't want to dwell on it, but you should know it happened, constantly. Discipline? Immediate. Creative? Brutal. You talk back? Soap. You steal? Stockade. You look at someone funny during mass? You are possessed. Time for a minor exorcism. Sometimes punishment is a beating. Sometimes it's a public shaming. Sometimes it's a terrifying puppet show about Saint Nicholas feeding naughty children to wolves. No, really. The church had puppets. And they were not cute. Modern comparison? Imagine a 5-year-old in steel-toed boots working in a kitchen with open fire, no parents, and a Latin test in the morning. Now remove the boots. Now remove the boots. That's childhood. And yet, children laugh. They throw things. They chase pigs for fun. They hide in hay. They learn songs with very questionable lyrics. They survive. Somehow. Not many, but some. You watch a child run barefoot down a muddy path holding a spoon and a dream. You smile, Then you remember they're scheduled to help slaughter a goat in the morning. It never ends, but neither do they. In Chapter 13, we'll discuss pets, vermin, and the blurred line between the two. Brace yourself and sleep lightly. There may be fleas. Some you feed, some you flee, some you sleep next to, and some sleep on you. You wake up scratching. Again, you scratch before you think, before you open your eyes, before you remember who and where and when you are. The itch is universal, deep and mobile. Something has been walking on your neck, possibly several somethings, possibly a family. Welcome to the ecosystem that lives in, on, and around your body. In the Middle Ages, the concept of pet is slippery. There are animals you own. There are animals you tolerate. And then there are animals that own you, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Let's begin with the intentional ones. Cats. They are everywhere, slinking in corners, lounging in rafters, judging you from hay bales. They are mousers, not companions. You don't name them. You don't pamper them. You don't dress them in little tunics and post them to parchment. You respect them. Because they keep rats away. Because they move like ghosts. Because sometimes they look at you and you remember your sins. But also they are suspicious, too clever, too independent, too feminine. Which means witch adjacent. Many a cat has been burned, drowned, or accidentally exorcised during a particularly intense Easter vigil. Still, you keep one. Because the alternative is worse. Dogs. There are two types. Working dogs, large, muddish, covered in mud, loyal until they aren't. Noble dogs, tiny, screeching, useless. Kept by ladies who name them after saints and feed them better than you eat. Dogs guard, dogs herd, dogs bark at things you can't see and things that shouldn't be there. Sometimes they sleep at your feet, sometimes they eat your food, sometimes they vanish into the woods and come back wrong, but mostly they just stink. Like wet wool and old sin. Birds. You keep chickens. Not for companionship, for eggs, feathers, and the occasional dramatic death. Chickens are stupid. They get lost. They attack children, they sleep in trees, and they scream when they see ghosts. You also keep geese, which are angrier, louder, and more emotionally unstable. They are the medieval home alarm system. They do not turn off ever. Horses. If you're rich, which you're not, so never mind. You have a donkey, maybe, or a cow with a limp. You love it. Because it helps you survive. Because it has eyes that understand suffering. Because it's the only creature that listens when you complain about your feet. Now, the uninvited ones. Let's start small. Fleas. They live in your clothes, in your bed, in your thatch, in your soul. You pick them off and crush them between your fingernails. You never get them all. Some people wear flea furs, little tufts of cloth designed to attract fleas away from your body, like decoys, except they don't work. But it makes people feel proactive. Lice, head lice, body lice, beard lice. Yes, beard lice. You itch, you boil your tunic. You itch again. Children have them constantly. Monks write poems about them. They are the background radiation of medieval hygiene. Sometimes people shave their heads to cope, but then they catch cold. Then they die. So, compromise. Rats. Big, black, fast. They live in walls, under floorboards, inside sacks of grain, behind your pillow, and sometimes you're not imagining this, in the church. They are fearless. They eat everything. They stare at you like they know your secrets. Some believe they carry disease. Some believe they are demons in fur coats. Both are correct. Mice. Cutest of the vermin, still eat your food, still spread plague, still chew through your bootlaces out of what feels like spite. You don't hate them. You just never turn your back on them. Bedbugs. Not new, not modern, not rare. You don't see them, but you feel them. In the dark, in the creases, in your nightmares. You scratch, you bleed, you whisper a prayer. They keep eating. Worms, inside you, always. You inherit them from your mother, your food, your shoes. They wriggle in your belly, they nest in your gut, they wave hello in your stool. The village healer gives you ash, or mint, or tells you to walk backward in a circle while chanting at the moon. You do all three. It doesn't help. Flies. They're everywhere. Every room, every pot, every child's face. They land on your food, your sores, your thoughts. In summer, they buzz. In winter, they die. Then return, more vengeful. You swat them with a spoon. They laugh. Modern comparison? Imagine sharing a one-bedroom apartment with 6 cats, 4 chickens, a garbage rat, an angry goose, and one roommate who never stops itching and definitely brought lice into the shower. That's medieval pet culture. Still, you love them. You pet the cat. You whisper to the donkey. You feed the dog the last bit of your bread. Because they're warm, because they're honest, because they don't talk behind your back in Latin. Because in this world of plague, penance, and perpetual hunger, a purring cat on your chest is the closest thing to peace. In chapter 14, we'll talk weather. Rain, mud, wind, more mud, and the sky's personal vendetta against your plans. For now, scratch once more, roll over, and hope the thing nibbling your ankle is just affectionate. The forecast is suffering, with a strong chance of death by puddle. The wind wakes you. Not gently. It slaps the side of your hut like it's collecting a debt. The thatch above your head whispers threats. The shutters rattle like nervous bones. The smoke from last night's fire has turned the room into a low, tepid fog that smells like wet socks and extinction. You cough. The wind coughs back. It's going to be one of those days. Let's talk about medieval weather. Not as a fun conversational filler, but as a direct threat to your survival. There is no mild inconvenience weather, no good excuse to stay in and binge something weather. There is only cold weather, cold, searing heat that ruins the harvest, and wind so sharp it can etch regret into your bones. You look outside. The world is slop. The ground isn't solid. It's a concept. The mud isn't just on the road is mud now. It sticks to your shoes, then your shins, then your sense of hope. Children scream in it, pigs bathe in it, you fall in it, regularly. You never fall with grace, only grunts and regret. There is no drainage. Water collects in ruts, in carts, in the folds of your clothing. It seeps into walls, into thatch, into you. You are constantly moist in places you didn't know could feel damp. Wool gets heavy. Leather cracks, feet rot. Yes, rot. It's called trench foot today. Back then it was called your fault for being born. And yet, the rain is not the worst. The worst is cold. Real cold. February through your marrow cold. Your breath becomes a ghost that never leaves. There's no insulation, no central heating, just the vague hope of fire and several layers of questionable wool. You huddle near the hearth. You inhale smoke. You cough out frost. At night, you share body heat with anything warm and willing. Your spouse, your children, a chicken, a questionable dog, a hot rock wrapped in a sock. Whatever keeps you out of the earth one more day. Now let's flip it. Let's talk heat. When the sun comes, it comes angry. It scorches the fields. It bakes the dung into bricks. It drives flies into a frenzy that borders on demonic possession. You sweat. The sweat attracts fleas. The fleas attract judgment. You drink water from the stream. The stream tastes like moss and someone else's mistake. You keep sweating. Then you faint. Then someone calls it bad air. Droughts kill crops. Floods rot grain. A late frost can ruin a season. And one hailstorm can wipe out everything you planted with your back and your future. You are at the mercy of clouds, and the clouds are vindictive. Let's talk wind. It is not poetic. It is hostile architecture in motion. It howls, it shrieks, it accuses, it slams doors, it lifts cloaks, it ruins roofs with passive-aggressive flapping. You step outside and are immediately slapped by a branch that fell from a tree no one remembers planting. You return inside. Your dignity stays outside. And winter? Winter is the long pause before death. Food runs low, firewood runs out, the livestock cough. You wrap yourself in every piece of cloth you own. You sleep next to a dying fire. You dream of warm things, soup, sun, hell. The climate is changing too. Not that anyone can name it, but winters are colder, summers are shorter. Storms more violent. They call it God's displeasure. You call it Tuesday. Modern comparison? Imagine living in a tent made of wet cardboard, in a swamp, where the weather is run by a petty, vengeful God with a drinking problem. That's the climate. You stop checking the sky. The sky never answers kindly. You wake up damp. You go to sleep damp. You dream damp. You dig a trench around your hut. It fills with water. You call it a moat. Your neighbor calls it a health hazard. You call your neighbor jealous. And yet in spring, when the sun shines through clean air, when the frost lifts, when a lamb bleats and a breeze smells faintly like maybe not manure, you almost forgive the weather. Almost. In chapter 15, we'll meet your final visitor. He wears many faces. He comes for all. And he doesn't knock. Yes, it's time to discuss death. Bring a blanket. Until then, keep warm, or at least keep alive. He's here. He's always been here. And he never leaves empty-handed. The day fades like everything else. You sit near the hearth, the fire sighs. Your joints ache in that very specific, very medieval way that says soon. Not today, maybe, but soon. Death is always nearby, in the corner, on the wind, under the floorboards, inside the man who coughed during morning prayers and hasn't stood up since. Let's speak of death now, gently, softly, because he listens. He's polite, you see. He waits until the moment is perfect, and then he makes his entrance. In the Middle Ages, death is not a visitor. He is a roommate. You share everything with him. Bread, bed, blood. He is in your water, your food, your clothes, your teeth. He is patient. Most people don't make it past 30. If you do, you are not healthy. You are haunted. You've buried siblings, parents, lovers, children. The neighbor who thought garlic could cure everything and died proving it couldn't. You don't ask if, you ask when, and sometimes how many this week. Let's list the causes. It's a long list, uncomfortably so. Infection, a scratch, a blister, a bite. One day it's red, 2 days later it's gone along with part of your leg. Fevers, they start small, they end in sweating, shaking, and neighbors whispering prayers as you collapse. Plague, yes, that one. Buboes, blackened limbs, speed, smell, the priest won't come near you. The rats will. Childbirth, brave, bloody, lonely. For many women, it's the last thing they do. Starvation, crops fail, stores rot, your body turns on itself politely then ferociously. War, even if you don't fight, you suffer. Armies take food, fire, and daughters. They leave disease, animals, horses kick, dogs bite, pigs eat things they shouldn't. Fire, one candle, one breath, and the thatch is gone, cold, slow. You fall asleep, you don't wake up. And then there's the spiritual side, because death isn't just the end, it's a beginning. Of judgment, of reckoning, of terrifying calculations. You've sinned. Everyone has. The only question is whether you confessed in time. If you didn't, well, you know what happens next. The church offers comfort, masses for the dead, candles, chants, bones of saints carried in small squeaky carts to make things better. But also, fear, penance, 100 ways to fail. You pay for indulgences if you have coins, you donate wool, you pray until your knees scream louder than your guilt. Because the worst fate isn't dying, it's dying unshriven. Let's talk about burial. If you're lucky, it's in consecrated ground, with a priest, a few words, a candle, a hole. If you're poor, it's faster, shallower, marked with a stone or not at all. The dead are wrapped in cloth, not coffins. The rich might get a box. The very rich, a tomb with a statue that doesn't resemble them. You've attended dozens of funerals. The bell tolls. Everyone knows who it's for. They always know. People gather. They cross themselves. They whisper, "He had a boil last week. She danced on a Sunday." They buried her without a shroud. The judgment continues. Even after death. Especially after death. Still, people try to prepare. They write deathbed wills. They donate a candle to the church. They beg the priest to forgive what they forgot to confess. Some give away all their belongings. Others whisper secrets they carried for years. One man screamed, "Tell Edric I know about the cheese." He died peacefully. At night, death visits the dreams. He rides a pale horse. He dances with children. He hums, softly, a tune you almost recognize. Sometimes he has no face. Sometimes he wears your neighbors. You wake in a sweat. You check your fingers, your toes, your breath. Still here. For now. Modern comparison? There isn't one. Not really. Modern death comes with warning, with medicine, with morphine and clean sheets and sterile apologies. Medieval death comes with mud, with incense, with no one answering your last question. It is raw, constant, and utterly unsurprised. You lie down. The straw pokes your back. The fire has died. The room smells of everything that lived here before you. You close your eyes. Outside, a bell tolls. You count the chimes. Then stop. It doesn't matter anymore. Sleep now, wanderer. You've made it to the end. You've survived filth, fire, superstition, parasites, and porridge. You've worn the wool. You've dodged the chamber pot. You've prayed the prayers and coughed the coughs. You are still here. And he hasn't knocked. Not tonight. Good night. Sleep deep. And if you wake with a sore throat, try not to panic. It's probably just the hay.